Hello and welcome to another Art of Rally video. Today I set myself quite a fun challenge. Namely, I took this track, Korea in Finland, and I decided to try and get a top 20 on the leaderboard in every possible car class that there is. So starting with Group 2, we'd move on to Group 3, 4, B, A and S, and even the four special kinds of cars that there are, I would try and set a top 20 score with. Um, the track is actually very fun. It's quite wide in most places. The road is quite wide, so it gives you a little bit of time to correct if you're making a mistake, which is quite nice. Like it's a quite lenient track in that sense. So if you were setting a good score, you had a fairly good chance of finishing that and not messing up. Because that's kind of why I chose. It's also not too long of a track. But it's actually really fun because you could see in the beginning there were some really long corners that you just want to keep your grip in, and you can't really go too fast because they're really long corners. Then there's some really long straight bits with a jump and everything, a hairpin, and then you blast up the hill with quite a long straight again, and then here is quite a twisty section, and yeah, especially the last part is very twisty. So what I started with was the Group 2 car, and I chose the Alpine because it's really one of my favorite cars. It's got a lot of power, it's fast, and it handles well. So that seemed like a good choice to begin with. And yeah, I feel like these cars, the Group 2 cars, are really quite consistent. So yeah, like I'm quite consistent with them as well because they don't go too fast. So it's quite easy to avoid making too many mistakes and setting an okay time. So it took me a couple of tries, say 3, 4, I think. And yeah, in that time I could get used to the track. I didn't really remember having ridden it much, so it was good to get used to the track. And we set an okay time, and that turned out to be 2:01.8. We can see that drop down later as we go with faster and faster classes, and that was a 17th place that we're gonna get. Yes, there you go. Next up, Group 3, of course. After three tries, I got this score, and that gave me a 21st place, which is ever so slightly annoying. But we just go again. I went with the Il Nono. I think that's technically in a bar, if I'm correct. Yeah, and it's again one of my go-to cars for that class. It just handles really well, and it got me through stage pretty nicely. So on my next run, yeah, I improve quite a bit and set 156.1, which is actually about 5 seconds faster, more than 5 seconds faster than the Group 2 time. So you can see we're definitely getting a lot faster. I think, especially in this track, it makes quite a big difference, the car class, because there's quite a lot of straights where you rely on power a lot. Yeah, and these higher classes, of course, have much more power. On to Group 4, which is, I think, one of the most fun classes to drive. It has my favorite cars. This one, for example, is one of my favorites. It has the Volvo. I really love this class. However, that is apparently not enough to actually set a good time. Yeah, despite this being my favorite car, one of my favorite cars in the game, I just couldn't really get a better time than 31st. So speaking of the Volvo, here it is. That's my next go-to car, and yeah, of course that one I also really enjoy driving, and I do improve. I actually really set a pretty good time. However, it's still only a 22nd place that I get, so I had to bring out the big guns. Apparently, like it depends a lot on the track that you're racing and how many people have tried to set a good score with a certain car. And I think my theory is that Group 4 is quite a popular car class for this specific track, because this one was absolutely by far the hardest to set a good time with. The Group 2 and 3 were relatively easy. Um, just got it done in like 10 minutes each at most. And then this one took me probably like 40 minutes, like 30 minutes trying out the other cars, and then 10 minutes with the Cossi. When I refer to the big guns, I meant the Cossi, this one. because it's really one of the best cars in Group 4. So I used that one in the end to set my best time. Unfortunately, I forgot to record the actual run. So when I finally set my best time with the Cozy, I went and recorded some of the replay, which you're looking at right now. Um, yeah, I feel like you can see in this run that there were very few mistakes. Like I really had to be on it, and I really had to make the best out of the track. So this is, I think, where I learned the track really well. Of course, running with Group 2 and 3, I had started to get to know the track a little bit, but really have to push your time up and up and up, little by little. That makes you get to know the track so much better and like know where to make speed and what to do everywhere. And I think you can see that in this run. Like it's really being pushed to as far as I could get it for now, at least. And we end up setting a 16th place on the leaderboard. So, time to move on to the next class. Once again, going with Cozy, but this time the Group B Cozy, so the Ford RS200 instead of the Cosworth that is the one in Group 4. Yeah, this one is all-wheel drive and a lot faster, and I could tell that in Group B there was a lot less competition, I think, because or maybe I just learned to track really well. Let's say it's that. But yeah, like this one. Actually, this was my run, and I made a bit of a mistake, and it turned out fine. So I guess it is actually just easier to get a good score in Group B in this track because there's fewer people to compete against. Anyway, yeah, this took like 2 tries, I think. So very different from before. On to the next class. This was really quite a messy run. It definitely wasn't my best. I didn't even try all that hard, and I couldn't really be bothered to try all that hard because I had to put so much energy into the Group 4 uh, run. And it ended up being enough for the leaderboard. Like, I really didn't have to try very hard. So what I was saying about the competition, it's very true. Because these cars have more power, they're supposed to be faster. This run is actually slower than the one I set in my Group B car. And still I got onto the leaderboard in the top 20. So it really depends on the car class, how hard it is. So if you're trying to set the top 20 for all car classes, then there's just going to be one that's hardest, and that for this race was definitely Group 4. Also with the fastest car class, where I could take the Subaru, I I did it first try. I mean, I actually happened to set a pretty good time, but it was clearly not as hard as most of the others. Again, not that much competition. Speaking of not that much competition, I moved on to the special classes, and because there wasn't that much competition in these, I decided to try and aim for top 5 on the leaderboard instead, because that it was easy enough to set a decent score. Actually, with the vans, I was having quite some fun. I really enjoy driving this one. It's a little bit silly, but fun. So I gave it a few tries and ended up setting a first place. So a world record, technically. Um, Definitely not due to lack of other people having tried. With the three-wheeler, I found so silly that I just went and drove it around once and hoped that it was a good enough score, which it was. It was a third place, and I didn't bother with that again. However, with the car truck, that one I find actually quite fun to try. So that one, with that one, I ended up crashing once, and then restarting and setting a pretty decent time that I was happy with. Once again, being a world record. Actually, it's really quite fun to throw through the corner. It seems like a gigantic truck with too much power and too much speed, but then it actually brakes really well, and then suddenly starts turning really well as well. It's a bit of an odd thing, but really fun. And last but not least is the logging truck, which I recently have gotten a little bit more practice with, so I set a decent time, second place, I think. Anyway, on to the results. So in Group 2, we had a 17th place, 2 minutes and 2 seconds, just about, with the La Montagne. Then for Group 3, we actually got a 1:56, quite a lot faster in Il Nono. 16th place for Group 4, that took a lot of work, and 1:49, pretty good time. Another 16th place, only a little bit faster in the Group B car, even though there's more potential in the Group B car. And then actually slower in the Group S car, which is a little bit silly. But yeah, just a lot easier to get into the top 20 for those. And lastly, with the Subaru, an 11th place, definitely the fastest time there. And then the fans, we got a first place. The triwheelers, we got a third place. With the trucks, an actual first place, so that's good. And lastly, the logging truck, which had a 223. All right, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed watching, and I hope you join me next time. Bye bye.